want to get real with you for a moment before I begin the video and show you my absolutely horrid, brittle and split nails. If you've been around PlannerTube at all, you'll know that our community is full of people with the most gorgeous, immaculate long nails. When I had a little bit of nerves about starting my YouTube channel, I thought it would boost my confidence by getting some gel nails done. I never wear nail polish at all and prefer keeping my nails quite short because I type a lot in my work as an academic. And having the gel nails destroyed my natural nails that it's just been drying out, cracking, peeling. This is really the perfect demonstration that if you're thinking about making a YouTube channel to share your love of planners, journals, and stationery, please set aside any idealizations you have about what you must look like, even when it's just your hands, and just show up as yourself. Please don't hurt yourself in the pursuit of any aesthetic ideal. Before I started this YouTube channel on New Year's Eve last year, I've been a passionate member of the PlannerTube community. I've always loved stationery from when I was little, but I started avidly following PlannerTube when I was a new mum. I would be sitting up breastfeeding through the night, watching videos by Jet Pens and Yoseka Stationery on my phone so that I didn't accidentally fall asleep and drop my baby. As my son got older and things started getting easier, I was able to buy more fountain pens and notebooks and take more time to myself to journal and do a bit of memory keeping. In one of my other videos, I share how keeping a traveler's notebook as a baby book, which is the book I have right here. Having this space to journal about my son through the first year of his life really gave me a creative outlet and a space where I could be more mindful and more grounded. This book helped me navigate postnatal depression and anxiety, and without exaggeration, really helped save my life. Around a year ago, I made the conscious decision to be more active in the PlannerTube community by commenting on the creators I regularly watched. You've heard me talk about them before on this channel, but in case you're new here or would just like a refresher, some of my favorites included Alison from Little Coco Studio, Lau from Kenshin Craft, and Jen from Jen. When I began commenting more regularly on their videos, I was absolutely touched by how welcoming and inclusive the community can be. I mean, not only are the creators really beautiful in terms of responding to my messages, to my questions, but I also would find that I would get into conversations with the other subscribers of their channels and often learn just as much about planner systems, journaling habits and routines, as well as fountain pen suggestions from the followers of their channels. Slowly, as I gained more free time, I wondered how it would be to have my own YouTube channel. I don't tend to see a lot of people in their late 30s or older talking about planners, journals, and stationery, as well as the unique juggles and struggles of their lives. I was also keen to learn from other working mothers how they made time for journaling because that was something that was quite difficult for me. After longing for this kind of content for the better part of last year, I decided I should just try and become the kind of creator that I wanted to see. This is not my first YouTube channel. Back in 2017, I dabbled in a booktube channel where I joined reading challenges and reported on the books I read each month. Are any of you also book lovers? I only made videos for around 6 weeks before I gave up because I was using a very, very old laptop and trying to edit and render videos on that old machine was agonizingly slow. I wanted to make this video to share with you what my experiences have been like these last 2 months, re-entering the YouTube space with a new channel that is allowing me a creative platform to express my unique practices and interests around planners, journals, and stationery. So, first, I wanted to share 3 things that I've learned about PlannerTube as I've just dipped my toes in the water of this online community. And then I want to share some advice for any of you, just in case you're interested in starting a YouTube channel of your own. The first thing that I've learned over the last 2 months of running Tiny Tiger Collective is that PlannerTube people are incredibly kind. So, as I said, I already had a bit of a hint of this when I began commenting more frequently in other people's channels long before I started my own. But the outpouring of warmth and compassion that I've received from all of you since beginning and uploading my very, very first video, it's just been so palpable. When I've told my real life friends about my channel, even the ones who aren't that interested in stationery, they've gone in to take a look to support me. And every single one of them, before they comment on anything, right, my interests, my content, my filming, the first thing that they'll say is that they are blown away by how lovely everybody is in my comment sections. They cannot believe how many people take the time to share vulnerable and generous experiences, reflections, and feedback on how to use planners and the tips and tricks that they've learned along the way that they think would help me. On my video about stationery flops and regretted purchases, I shared my disappointment after not receiving a free individual pen sleeve that I saw at least 10 creators showcasing in their orders. It was a one-off comment that I made in the moment, and I really wasn't expecting anything from sharing that particular disappointment other than giving other people a potential reality check in case, like me, they got swept up in all the haul videos and thought that it was going to be a given that every single order from Galen Leather receives a pen sleeve. But me, a stranger on the internet, expressed that surprise when I didn't get a pen sleeve. And I'm not kidding you, I had 3 people reach out to me. This is back when I had maybe 200 subscribers, and 3 people reached out to offer me a pen sleeve that they had that they weren't using. I just never have encountered that kind of generosity before, and it was truly humbling. Actually, the following week, I went into campus for a work meeting, and my beautiful friend Libby presented me with the pen sleeve that she had received but wasn't using, and I was just absolutely touched by that gesture. Um, it is so handy now that when I travel, or even if I'm going into work or going from meeting to meeting, I can now put my beloved Pilot Custom 823 into the single pen sleeve rather than having to lug my 5 pen sleeve all around town. And it's going to protect the pen from being scratched up, and it's really all I need when I'm going about journaling on the go. So it is incredibly functional and valuable. So thank you, Libby, for this incredibly thoughtful and generous gift. In the past 2 months, I've made videos around planners as well as around my love of fountain pens. One thing that I will say that might be a little bit contentious is that I do actually find that PlannerTube people are a bit kinder than fountain pen people. I've mostly talk about my Hobonichi, my traveler's notebook systems, because that's what I use. And even when I share experiences, like when I was disappointed in the Hobonichi launch last year and all the debacle that happened around the paper quality, or when I share about how my planner systems aren't working for me, I tend to overwhelmingly get very empathetic and respectful comments. People who don't feel the need to rush in and defend Hobonichi from what they perceive as a vicious attack by a consumer. People who believe me when I say things aren't working for me, and they don't try to assert unsolicited advice or lecture me about how I must be using my planners wrong. But I do tend to get a little bit more of that when I share content about fountain pens, which surprised me. I mean, fountain pens, after all, are my first love. So I have been using fountain pens for years. And one day I can do a deep dive video to tell you a little bit more about my full collection as well as my history of using fountain pens. And it was because I love fountain pens so much that I had recommendations from people of saying, well, don't you want good paper to use your fountain pens on? And so that's when I discovered Hobonichi, Traveler's Notebook, Midori paper, and all the different brands out there that make the most perfect fitting notebooks for fountain pen lovers. So, fountain pens is an area that I wasn't really expecting would be such a hotly debated space. But in my videos where I have shared whether it's my favorite fountain pens, but particularly the video where I shared a couple of disappointments that I've had with my fountain pens, such as my vanishing point, as well as my experiences with dark red dye mine inks, I've actually surprisingly have seen quite a few comments that sort of have the energy of, well, your experiences differ from mine, so you must be wrong. Or I'll have people come in and write borderline condescending comments that are sort of lecturing me about, how I must be taking care of them wrong or cleaning them wrong or doing this, that, and the other. Nothing that's so bad that I felt like the need to delete the comment. So I've actually left everything up there. But maybe it's because it comes off as a bit blunt, or fountain pen people get straight to the chase and they don't tend to write the niceties around, oh, thank you for the video, thank you for sharing your experiences, these are mine. But they just tend to go straight into giving a lot of advice about, okay, so this is what you must be making a mistake in, here's how you correct it, this is what I do, so you need to follow that. But even in my short time making videos on this YouTube channel, the comments that I've received are just incredibly diverse. And what I've learned is that there's no one size fits all when it comes to fountain pens or planners for that matter. So when I said that I've had a lot of issues with my pilot vanishing point, having hard starts, skips, drying out, particularly because I was pairing this for the better part of last year with platinum carbon black ink, which is a permanent waterproof ink, in case you don't know. I've had a lot of people who tell me, oh, well, you must be using it wrong because I use platinum carbon black in my vanishing point every single day and I have absolutely no problems. In fact, it's one of my best writers. So you should go get it checked out because your nib must be broken. And then I've also had people say, oh, I've had exactly the same problem and it doesn't work for me and I've struggled, or I own 3 different vanishing points and none of them have worked with platinum carbon black. And then equally, some people might say, well, have you tried Diatramentis, which is also a permanent waterproof ink made by a different brand? They go, have you tried that ink? That one always works really well for me in my vanishing point. And then equally, I'll have someone say, I've never found a waterproof ink, whether it be platinum carbon black or Diatramentis, that works for me. So it shows me that people's experiences are so different and it can depend on your particular pen, the broadness of your nib. It could also depend on your climate and what kind of paper that you're working on. So with all of those variables, it's very difficult to say that, oh, because my experience is a certain way, it must be universal for everybody else. And that's one of the cultural differences that I've noticed between fountain pen community and the PlannerTube community online, even though you think that there should be a pretty big overlap between those two groups of people. So if you are thinking about making a stationery channel, take with that what you will. But one thing that I've really learned is that I don't take for granted that I've received so many kind and compassionate comments on my channel. And I'm going to keep working on building this space, responding to your comments, engaging with you in and outside of my videos in order to develop and strengthen our community. Another thing that I've learned is that it's harder than it looks to write and flip through journals while talking. In fact, everything about starting this planner YouTube channel was very difficult in the beginning, but everything got easier over time. In my first ever video, I did a flip through of all my 2024 planners, including this Hobonichi Cousin, which was my main planner all of last year. And as I was talking, and by the way, I made so many takes because I had so many false starts as I was recording that video. I would find that I would be so nervous, so stiff, that my hands almost like needed to do something with that nervous energy and started flipping through my book while I was talking and concentrating on focusing what I needed to say. But then my hands would just nervously flip through the book and it would have nothing to do with what I was saying. But at the same time, I was also flipping through really sensitive information and private information that I didn't actually want to share on the video either. So I had to learn how to blur out some of those sections later in editing. And at that time, I thought, gosh, how am I supposed to keep a YouTube channel for my planners when I'm struggling to even do the most basic thing, which is talk and go through a journal at the same time? But the more I made videos, the easier all of those things became. So whether it would be relaxing into my talking so that I felt like I had a little bit more mental space to also keep an eye on what I was flipping through and how I was flipping through my pages, but also just things like how to continue talking after making a mistake and not letting it completely derail my entire video, or how I can sound more relaxed and natural through my voice. I found that when I watched back through my first 4 or so videos, I sound really stilted because I was extremely nervous about sharing what I had to say. It was like being in a job interview. But when I was recording my 5th video, I just noticed like my shoulders were relaxed. I noticed that my hands were also kind of less shaky. And I realized, oh, I'm actually speaking like I would be to a good friend who's just dropped over for a cup of tea and wanted to know what was going on in my planning life. And I finally found that process like so much more relaxing and easeful. And everything else has become easier. How I set up my camera, how I set up my microphone, remembering what I need to click, what I need to turn on, what I need to turn off, and the whole entire editing process every single time that I do it. And that's not to say I don't make some mistakes and have to take a couple of steps back every now and then. But on the whole, everything becomes easier, more efficient, and more effective. Also, putting videos out, I learned a lot about what different people need. And sometimes it's a lot about people's individual preferences and how their brain works. My first 4 videos, I put a lot of time and effort into choosing beautiful, relaxing piano background music, and I would interweave them through the back of all of my videos as I spoke. And there were a few challenges to doing that. I'm not a musically talented person. So for me, I felt like it took me a lot longer than somebody who might be more musical to find the right songs and to understand how to cut the music, how to mix the music in a way that enabled the mood of the song to match the mood of whatever topic I happen to be talking about at the time. I am kidding you not. That took me about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the length of the video, in order just to choose, mix, and edit all of the music. Then around my fifth video or so, I got some feedback from a couple of viewers saying that they found the background music actually quite distracting and they weren't able to pay attention to what I was saying as easily or as comfortably. And so having that feedback, which didn't even occur to me, enabled me to trial making a few videos without the background music, with the exception of an intro and an outro track. And that really cut down my editing time by almost half. And if I hadn't put myself out there and been open to the feedback of my viewers, I wouldn't have actually found an approach that made my entire video making process easier and more sustainable in the long term, but also potentially a lot more comfortable and enjoyable for the viewers. The third and the last thing that I learned was that I can become a better planner and journaler by keeping a planner YouTube account. Let me clarify, this is not to say that people who make videos about their planners and their journals are better planners and journalers than those who do not. What I've experienced is that the opportunity to show up week after week to systematically reflect on and talk through all of my planners, journals, my processes, my habits, what's working, what's not working, it has given me greater insights about my journaling needs and challenges than planning in all the years before I started a YouTube account. I love the idea that in my past few videos, I've talked through what worked and doesn't work for me and what I think I might change, what parts of my systems I might tweak, how I'm going to do things differently. All of that reflection happened live on my videos and are documented for me to reflect on whenever I need. And I think it's going to enable me to gain greater self-awareness and greater wisdom about the kind of planner system that I can build for myself in 2026. And in doing so, enable me to purchase the kind of planners and build the kind of systems that are the most effective for my needs. And that helps me become a more intentional consumer of stationery, planner, and journaling supplies. So if there's any part of you that has felt a tug in your heartstrings to start a YouTube channel, I would love to share 3 different thoughts to potentially help you reflect on or start on that journey. My first piece of advice is to just do it. Last November, I had a moment thinking about everything that I wanted to do to start a YouTube channel, but then I began to enumerate in my head all the tasks that laid in front of me. At that time, I needed to upgrade my iPhone so that it had a better quality camera for recording. I needed to buy a stand to mount my phone so that I could get a top-down view of my desk like this. I needed to find and learn a software for video editing. I needed to find a database for background music. All these things came up in my mind and tears welled up in my eyes because I was so overwhelmed. Eventually, because you know I'm here, I took a deep breath and I just tackled one thing at a time, including going the following week to the Apple store and I picked up a brand new iPhone that is now high enough quality for me to record all of these videos. I was so stressed out about all the things that I had to do, and I also delegated some tasks. So I asked my partner, who is very tech savvy, I asked him if he could research good desktop mounts for cameras, and I asked him to research a good one and to purchase it for me, which he did, and it arrived at my house in a couple of weeks. So one step at a time was how I was able to gain all the skills, gain all the knowledge that I needed to get started. And a lot of that also meant keeping it as simple as possible. I know a lot of people on YouTube use those little DJI microphones. And at first I thought, okay, I need to research these lapel mics. I need to find one within my budget. I need to buy it. I need to wait for it to be delivered. And then I need to read the manual and learn how to use it. But then I thought, look, I already have a really good stand mic. It's this Elgato right here that I keep just off screen. And this stand mic was something that I had purchased during the pandemic when I needed to deliver all of my lectures for university at home. So it's decent quality. And all I need to do that's slightly inconvenient is that I have to plug it into my laptop, which is on the ground, and I record my audio files separately to my video and I put them together when I'm editing. I even literally made my video and had no idea how I was going to edit it. But then I did some research online and I learned that a lot of people had been switching from really expensive software like Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what I used to use before I canceled my subscription with Adobe, to using a free software called DaVinci Resolve. And one step at a time, learning the bare minimum that I needed to cross the hurdle. I watched a few YouTube tutorials and I was able to edit my first video and prepare that for upload. If any of you are seriously thinking about starting a YouTube channel and you're stuck, you don't really know where to go, you feel like you've hit a brick wall, please don't hesitate to share where you're at in the comments below. And if there's anything that I can help you with or point you in the direction that I took when I fell into a similar pitfall, I would be more than happy to help you out. I also want to give a counter perspective to that last tip, which is to consider not starting a YouTube channel. It is a lot of work, particularly if you're new to filming and editing. Even though I had a booktube channel all those years ago, there were so many things about YouTube that I felt like I had to relearn. And looking back on when I was feeling a yearning to get started, I wasn't sure I understood how much work it involved. Like maybe intellectually I knew, but I didn't feel that time pressure in my day-to-day life. I didn't have to live with that time pressure. And indeed, I work full time. I have a very energetic 2.5-year-old toddler at home who needs me to chase around after him most days. And filming, editing, doing the thumbnails, writing the descriptions, timestamps, uploading every video has probably taken me around 8 hours a week. And that's 8 hours a week that, perhaps I could have spent resting more, spending more time on my hobbies, playing a new save file of Baldur's Gate 3. But I chose to prioritize exploring the PlannerTube community, sharing my love for planners, journals, and stationery online, because that was where I saw myself having the most growth. And I was yearning for that creative expression at the same time. So I don't regret my decision, but it's also just a reminder that hobbies don't have to be publicized on social media in order for them to have value. And there's a lot to be said about keeping some hobbies to yourself as something that you treasure, that you practice in private, and indeed commenting on people's YouTube channels, participating in other more conversational social media communities like Reddit can be one way that you scratch the itch of being part of a community without having to create a channel to build that community and to attract that community around you. But if in your heart you know that you do want to start a YouTube channel, one of the things that I will leave you with is to lower your expectations as low as you can possibly go. not putting pressure on yourself to create the best channel that you can possibly create. There are so many aesthetic and professional YouTube channels out there, like the ones with the beautiful nails, to take an example, that we can watch as viewers and think that, oh gosh, that's the minimum bar. Like that's the minimum expectation that other people must have for me to be worthy of their time and their attention. And I don't believe that this is the case. I think that everybody has a unique perspective and something to share where other people who might resonate with your experiences or with your worldview or even with your standpoint would really yearn to have in their lives as something that allows them to receive validation, affirmation, and support in whatever they are experiencing in their planner and journaling journey. So I think everyone has a valuable contribution to make, and it doesn't have to be done with the best camera, the best audio recording equipment, the fanciest, most polished video editing styles at all. Some of my favorite planner YouTubers are people who simply sit down at their desks and talk to their phones. There are people who do minimal editing. They ramble, they keep in all their mistakes, all their hesitations, but I listen to them anyway because I really care about what they have to say. We are a community full of people who are inclined towards slow living, intentional living. We're not the sort of community that necessarily adheres to the conventional commercialized YouTube advice around how you have to have a hook, how you have to keep everything short and snappy, give people a call to action, or at the end redirect them to another video to get them to keep watching to retain their engagement. I think that we're a community more than other communities where we get to respectfully leave aside a lot of those marketing tactics. And instead, we can just show up as our full human selves and connect with our viewers on that human to human level. And in our social media infused era, it is so hard to find really genuine people and really genuine channels. So I really celebrate the fact that we have this on the PlannerTube community and we get to have like-minded, kindred spirits to share our passion for planners, journals, and stationery with every day. One of the things that I've been keeping in mind, which is to imagine that the first 100 videos that I make on this channel is purely for practice. And that means that I feel like I can experiment, I can play. If I have a video where it doesn't perform as well as others, I'm not stressing about it because I'm just trying different formats, different methods, different styles. And I'm seeing not just what performs well, what gets the most likes and views, but what I enjoy doing the most, what feels the most comfortable for me to show up and speak to. So, with that in mind, I can really reduce the pressure on myself to make all of my videos perfectly in line with my channel brand, whatever that might be. But instead, I can just turn up and have fun, see what works, see what resonates with you, and see what resonates with me. And I think starting with that kind of approach is just so much more relaxing and helps take the pressure off. So please let me know, are any of you interested in making YouTube videos? Have any of you tried making it and given up? Or are any of you actively making videos for the PlannerTube community right now? And if you do, please let us know so we can also check out your channel and subscribe and follow along your journeys. I am really thankful for each and every one of you for being here, for having followed me when I was a brand new channel with 1 or 2 videos and you had no idea if I was going to keep showing up, but you stayed along. And some of you, when I see your names show up in my notifications, I know that I'm going to open up to an incredibly warm and generous comment. and they really, every single one of them, just makes me smile. So thank you for being here, and I hope you stay around. Before I close out this video, I wanted to give a little homage to my old days as a booktuber. And in case any of you are interested in books, I wanted to share with you some of the books that I've read so far this year in 2025. So I just finished We Need New Names, in the 2013 debut novel of Novella Bulawayo, about a young girl named Darling who grows up in a slum in Zimbabwe and then later migrates to the US as a teenager. It is very graphic in some of its scenes of violence, poverty, and pain, but it is such a gripping story and is, to me, one of the best books that I've read with a coming of age story. My favorite book that I've read so far this year would be Let Us Descend, which is the 2023 novel by Jesmyn Ward. It follows the story of a young slave called Annis who's sold by her white father to a Louisiana sugar plantation. Her journey to the new plantation is again described with a lot of very graphic suffering, but follows the story of empowerment and liberation, and it has a really uplifting ending. Another 5-star read for me this year is White Teeth, which was a novel from 2000 by Zadie Smith, focusing on two friends called Archie Jones and Samad Iqbal. They survive World War II as teenagers, but then we follow them through the decades, the story about their wives and their children, all throughout the second half of the 20th century, against the landscape of a very diverse and rapidly changing London. My favorite non-fiction book for me this year, and is one that I didn't know what to expect, but really surprised and delighted me in the best way, is Rebecca Solnit's 2021 book, Orwell's Roses, that follows the writer George Orwell's life, but particularly centering on his hobby as a passionate gardener. If you love to read, please also share with me your favorite books or your recent reads. I am always looking for reading recommendations, and I would love anything that you have to share. Thank you so much for being here. It is such a joy and a delight showing up every week for you and hearing about your reflections, your experiences. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care until then. Bye-bye.